Oops. You may take off your jackets if you wish, because it's pretty warm outside. The first item is to receive apologies, and we have apologies from Councillor Banwit and Councillor Repton. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Singh.
Councillor Singh.
Councillor Atwal. And Councillor Jones and Councillor Nater are travelling. They're in traffic at the moment.
Councillor Balbir Sandhu. Yes. Yeah. The third item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the annual meeting of the Council held on 22nd of May 2013. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed the declaration of interest, not my day. Have we got any declarations of interest?
No, I don't think we do, Mr. Mayor.
No? Okay. The third item is to approve the minutes of the annual meeting of the Council held on 22nd of May 2013. I am aware of minor changes to the constitutional appointments, and all members now have a corrected list in front of them. I move that we approve the minutes. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Those in favour? Those against? The fourth item is to receive any announcements from the Mayor. I am delighted to report that since we last met, the Council has won a number of awards. Some of them are on the dais. There are 2 Municipal Journal Awards, a Green Apple Award to mark the environmental management of this building, and a Credibility Award for the facilities of this building in meeting the needs of disabled people. Phil, you said there was something else which you were going to... Purple flag. Purple flag. That has been missing from the list which was given to me. But we can add that on now and minute it. Yeah, item 5, to receive any statements from members of the Council Cabinet. We do not have any. Item 6, to receive any questions from the public to members of the Council Cabinet and the answer to those questions. Questions received and written answer to them have been published. Our public questioners have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question which must be related to the written answer already published. There are 2 questions, both from Mr. Simon Bacon. Mr. Bacon, in respect of your first question on waste recycling, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Bayliss?
I do, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Okay, can you ask that question now?
Thank you. Councillor Bayliss, you failed to answer my question. Why did the review not include a proposal for 70% recycling, which would be the hallmark of a forward-thinking council?
Thank you. I think the question and the answer to it are complete, Mr. Mayor. I mean, one of the things I'd like to point out is that the new blue bin collections have increased recycling in this city by over 17%. And the other thing I'd like to just point out is that the commissioning in due course of the waste treatment plant will see a further increase in recycling in Derby and a significant financial saving to both Derby and Derbyshire taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bacon, in relation to your second question regarding the Sinn Féin waste treatment plant, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Bayliss?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Councillor Bayliss, Derby City Council is paying £25 million towards the Sinn Féin incineration plant, and it is their city burning city waste and places... Let's start again. And it is their city, it's in their city burning city waste and places city residents at risk. If, like the Isle of Wight Enegos plant, it breaches toxic dioxin emission limits. As the leader of the City Council, are you, Councillor Bayliss, happy to place residents' health at risk due to the lack of ability to monitor emissions which you could have required as a customer and part owner of the plant?
Mr. Mayor, in answer to that question, all those issues regarding health and issues regarding emissions have actually been dealt with, and I refer Mr. Bacon to the actual planning judgments in terms of the outcomes. On page 3 of the planning judgments, items 5 and 6, the planning inspector clearly dealt with the effects of proposal air quality and the impacts of health. In respect to dioxins, paragraph 99, page 19, deals with that as well. I won't bore council by reading those out. People can read those on the web. And specifically in respect of health, I would refer Mr. Bacon to paragraph 116, page 22, and paragraph 117 on page 23, and I will read a small extract of that out. And the planning inspector said, I conclude on this issue that there is no evidence to suggest that the proposal would adversely affect the health of those living in this part of Derby. And I think that, Mr. Mayor, answers the questions. Thank you.
We'll just move on, Mr. Mayor, please.
Councillor Bayliss has answered your question, and yes. Yeah. Okay. Item 7 is to receive any written questions about the business or functions of Derbyshire Fire Authority and Derby Homes, and the answer to those questions. We do not have any questions on that item. Item 8, to receive any written questions from non-cabinet, council cabinet members to the members of the council cabinet and the answers to those questions. As with the public questions, written responses to questions have been published, and there is now an opportunity for supplementary questions. Councillor Ingle, do you have any supplementary questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity to speak. Good evening, Councillor Bayliss. Thank you very much indeed for answering my question. I'm still very concerned of how long this has taken to come through the system. 30 weeks is almost unforgivable. Can I ask that now you chase this through the system, bring an end to the issues of the community centre? My information is that if these serious concerns are not addressed, the nursery will have to close in October. Of course, a nursery provision is a statutory obligation that the council has to provide. None of us in this chamber wants that. Can I ask that you take hold of this personally and get it through the system to a good conclusion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Councillor Ingle. I think one thing I have to point out to Council that I believe that Councillor Ingle has failed to declare an interest here. The directors of the nursery are also directors of Sportswise Marketing, which, according to Councillor Ingle's declaration of interest, is currently an employee. I'm also aware that Councillor Ingham has met with Mr Greer at the Sainsbury's coffee shop, at which it was alleged that Mr Greer was asked if he wanted to be the Conservative candidate for Sinfin Ward, which Mr Greer declined. So one has to view the question asked in those ways. But however, there is a serious matter at hand here regarding the Council failing to deliver a speedy outcome to this, and I accept that we can and should do better. I am, however, told, Mr Mayor, that proposals have come forward as part of this process and do to solve both problems, one of the lease not being complied with and the nursery being able to continue to support the residents of Sinfin, and in due course that will be announced. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bayliss. The next question is Councillor Higginbottom. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Titley?
I do, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much. Is there any weighting applied within the procurement process to those organisations who can provide over and above the minimum requirements expected?
I cannot clarify the answer to that question at the moment, but I will get you a written answer to it. But what I will say is that we take safeguarding as a paramount concern, which you will know as a member of the Labour group, stands head and shoulders above many other considerations. And you will also be aware that we have seen many cuts due to the coalition government, £60 million over 3 years, and that many more millions of pounds of cuts will be coming our way, but still we provide a high quality service which you will recognise is excellent for this administration. We'll get you a written answer to that. Thank you.
The next question is from Councillor Williams. Councillor Williams, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Titley?
Mr Mayor, thank you. Not at this present time, thank you.
We move on to item 9. The minutes and recommendation of the Council Cabinet of 10th of July requiring approval of the Council. Members will have received documents 9 detailing 1 minutes of Cabinet meeting on 10th of July requiring approval. That being 33/13 capital outturn. Councillor Bayliss,
could I, if there's no other speakers, Mr Mayor, could I formally move the motion that we adopt and receive the minutes of the meetings of the 12th of June and the 10th of July that require the approval of Council?
Is that seconded? Those in favour? Any against? Sorry, I will get used to it one day. Item 10 is to receive the 2012-13 annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Board. The motion reads to receive 2012-13 annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny. And I think Councillor Titley is going to move the motion.
Indeed, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank all members from all parties for the contribution to the work of Overview and Scrutiny during the Council year just closed. I'd like to thank all of those people who gave witness statement, either verbally or in writing, and the officers who supported it. We've made significant progress in a variety of areas on Overview and Scrutiny during the last year. And I think one of those things was to ensure that we gain the participation of the citizens of Derby through various forums and user groups. So I think Scrutiny is in good shape, in good hands now, and I wish them well in the future years, future year ahead, and I formally propose acceptance of this report subject to any questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Titley. The next item is item 11.
No, do you want to ask if there's any questions?
Oh, sorry.
Before we move on.
Are there any questions on the report? Can we accept the report? Those in favour? Those against?
Second. Okay. Yes.
It's all right.
Motion is carried. So now we
The
move
next item is
to the Standards Committee.
to receive the 2012-13 annual report of the Standards Committee. Councillor Titley again.
Never mind, Mr Mayor, I'll be quick. I would like to again move this report and thank all the members of the Standards Committee that participated, both the council members and the independents, for putting their time and effort into the work of this important committee for the council. And subject to questions, I move formally again.
Do we have a seconder? Those in favour? Any against? We move on to item 12, to consider a report by the Strategic Director of Resources concerning the Disputes Resolution Committee. This is a three-part motion. The third part requests nominations from our three group leaders. Before we move to the vote, can we have nominations, please? The Labour group has sent three nominations: Councillor Bolton, Councillor J. Khan and Councillor Whitby. Do we have nominations from the other two groups? Councillor Hickson?
Yes, Councillor Hallwood, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Harwood? Councillor Jones?
Sorry, Councillor Jones isn't here, Mr Mayor. There are no nominations from the Liberal Democrat group.
Sorry?
We move the motion now.
Yeah. Now that we have those nominations, Councillor Bayliss, will you move the motion, please?
Could I formally move the motion, which just tied us up a little anomaly that we became aware of in terms of making this committee a proper committee rather than a subcommittee? I'll move the motion as printed with the nominations received, Mr Mayor.
Is that agreed?
Do we have a seconder?
Do we have a seconder?
Yes.
Those in favour? Any against? Non-executive decisions as Chief Executive. Councillor Bayliss?
Could I formally move them, Mr Mayor?
Have we got a seconder? Any against? That's carried. Notice of motion. We have just one this evening, proposed by Councillor Russell. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good evening. Despite being one of the most economically developed nations on the planet, it's shameful to say that we still have people living in poverty. Figures recently released by the DWP show that 1 in 5 children in the UK live in absolute poverty, a total of 2.6 million children. A scandalous statistic, I'm sure you'll agree. That's matched by the proportion of working-age adults living in absolute poverty, also 1 in 5, a total of 7.9 million. So with so many people in Britain living in poverty, it begs the question, why is this government pursuing its sustained and vicious attack on the poorest and most vulnerable in our society? It appears that divide and rule politics is the order of the day. This government is pitting neighbour against neighbour, low-paid against the unemployed, just as the Victorians did with the deserving and the undeserving poor. It's shocking to say that present-day England is starting to look more and more like its Victorian counterpart every day. Food banks are booming, the threat of homelessness is rising and debts are spiralling. You only have to turn on your TV to see evidence of that. Documentaries following the lives of people who really do live in poverty make for harrowing viewing. Take the BBC's Growing Up Poor or Channel 4's Skin, showing people who go to extreme lengths just to get by. A recent example was a programme called Great British Budget Menu. I don't know if any of you saw it, but it followed 3 chefs who tried to help people who were in real food poverty. A pensioner called Patrick lived on half a cup of soup for his evening meal every day, and he'd be lucky if he got a slice of bread with it. I don't know about you, Mr Mayor, but I've never had to contend with that level of poverty, and I don't think many other people in this chamber have either. And I'm not ashamed to say either, Mr Mayor, that I found myself in tears listening to Patrick's story about how he had to scrimp and save to get by. But sadly, Patrick isn't alone in the way he lives. There are people up and down the country who endure similar situations, and some of them live here in our own city. It's for these reasons of hardship and struggle that people turn to payday lenders. Recent research shows that 80% of payday loans are taken out to pay for basic things like food, travel and rent. People are struggling to keep their heads above water and are being hit hard by these payday lenders' astronomical charges. I was absolutely horrified this weekend when I visited the website of one of the market's leading payday lenders, Wonga, and discovered their representative APR was a bewildering 5,853%. I mean, it's amazing. That company's turnover increased by a staggering 225% over the last year. Income generated from other people's misfortune. This may be put in even starker contrast when I tell you that Derby's United Credit Union, which operates here in our city, offers loans to people of a similar risk rating at just 26.8%. And not only that, but it reinvests its profits back into the community it serves. If only people knew about the credit unions, Mr Mayor, I think the choice would be a much simpler one. Borrowing from payday lenders is a risk people sadly are forced to consider, often knowing they will find it difficult or impossible to pay back the massive interest repayments, but doing it just to get by. In fact, almost half of all borrowers knew they couldn't repay, with 57% missing a payment as a result. And who is taking advantage of this? The legal loan sharks who are profiteering from people's financial misfortunes. Credit unions are undoubtedly the best option for people on low incomes who are considering taking out a loan. Not only do they offer much reduced rates of interest, but they also promote financial literacy and advice to their members. Using credit unions means that the wealth stays in the local economy. Rather than creaming off massive profits from huge interests accrued, credit unions reinvest their interest into the union to provide a loan or banking service to another individual, thus creating a self-financing funding circle. I believe that it's our duty as a local authority to help educate people as to the benefits of credit unions, as well as increasing their membership. In Ireland, 50% of the population are members of a credit union, while in America and Canada the figures are around 40%. Here in the UK, it's a meagre 2%. So I think we need to tackle that. We need to do what we can to promote these unions to make them a viable alternative for payday lenders. We know that payday lenders have irresponsible and sometimes unethical lending practices. I was told the other day of a healthcare worker who was visiting a family in one of the more deprived areas of our city. During her regular hourly visit, 3 separate payday lenders came knocking on the door of that family to offer them a loan at huge APR rates. With the constant threat of keeping your head above water and an onslaught of contacts from these companies, is it any wonder that hard-pressed families succumb to their hard-sell techniques? I was delighted when I heard, Mr Mayor, even if I thought a little belatedly, that the Office of Fair Trading has reported the entire payday loans industry to the Competition Commission. Following investigations, the OFT uncovered evidence which suggested, and I quote, widespread irresponsible lending and failure to comply with the standards required of them. If that isn't enough to make everyone in this chamber support this motion, I'm not really sure what is. More than 30,000 people with payday loans contacted the debt charity Step Change in the last 6 months, which is almost as much as the whole of the last year. Since the government's welfare reforms hit in April, the Council has received well over 1,300 applications for some form of financial support from our residents. In April this year, our excellent advice service, Derby Advice, dealt with well over 1,000 calls in just 1 month from residents concerned about their finances. Of course, these numbers don't reflect those people in Derby who have sought advice from elsewhere in the third sector or from church groups, or those which simply haven't contacted anyone for the help that they need. This is a very real issue for our residents and one which is not going to go away. That's why I would urge you to support this motion. Whether you represent Derby's most affluent wards or those where poverty is a major issue, this motion is about doing the decent thing and demonstrating that this council and all its 51 members truly care. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Shanker, you've seconded the motion. Do you wish to speak now?
I'll formally second the motion, Mr Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Do we have any contributions from anybody else? Councillor Williams.
Waiting for everybody to take their turn then, Mr Mayor. Seems you're a bit shy tonight, wanting to get somewhere. Well, Mr Mayor, you'll be pleased to know that despite some of the little bit of political rhetoric there, I actually agree with this motion. I think financial literacy is actually paramount, and we shouldn't just be doing this at the level of credit unions. We should be doing this first and foremost in our schools, right from the early years stages. In fact, earlier than that. We should be doing it in our children's centres, with the families that come in and use them. We should be doing it in schools. We should be teaching young people how to cook properly, how to budget properly, how to actually use the money that they've got to shop effectively and to save properly. And I know some of our schools are doing that, and they should be credited for that. That's an amazing start to life that you can give anybody. My grandma always said to me, save for a rainy day. Unfortunately, I was stupid and I didn't take her advice. And I have been in this situation where I have had to use one such loans. When I left the army in 1998, I had got a mortgage before I'd left the army, but when I left the army, I couldn't get the job I wanted. I worked as a secretary during the day, I worked in a bar at night, and I worked at Pizza Hut at the weekend as a waitress, and I only just managed to pay my mortgage. But I had to go down each month to a little centre in the Eagle Centre and cash a cheque in front, because I didn't have any money for my food. And it's a horrible predicament to be in, and I absolutely agree it is something that has to be legislated for to make sure that these payday loans cannot take the mica out of people who are really struggling. Luckily, I got a job and was able to pay off all my debts. However, one of the things that's interesting is that some people want to just put a straightforward cap on interest rates. Putting caps straight on interest rates would just shut down the short-term loans and force people to use the illegal loan sharks and other extreme measures, as Councillor Russell has mentioned. Now, the OFT have written to 50 payday lenders, which is 90% of the sector at the moment. They've got 12 weeks to prove that they come up to scratch with the current legislation, otherwise they could be put out of business. 5 of them have already left the payday market, and 2 of them have already given up their licence. So this is great news. There's also been a summit held, and the Competition Commission are currently, as Councillor Russell said, investigating. Now, the Financial Conduct Authority are going to be able to, next year, from April, regulate consumer credit. This will give them huge powers, which include powers such as capping interest rates, such as imposing bans on companies or limiting the rollovers that lenders can do. Now, for me, that final point is the big point, because these loans should only be a short-term fix. They shouldn't be continual use after use after use. And it's there that the big interest rates build up. So hopefully when this legislation comes into force in April next year, I hope that the Financial Conduct Authority will use these powers to legislate and to cut down the remaining companies that stay in and make sure that they stay within the law and they are fair and equal. Now, I absolutely agree with the 2 points in the Council resolution, and I know my group are going to support this fully. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Rawson has indicated that he wishes to speak. Next. Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of points to make. I do very much welcome this motion and thank Councillor Russell and Councillor Shanker for bringing this forward. As has been mentioned, many of our schools do already provide literacy lessons as part of their curriculum, and indeed it will be good to see that that extended, and we'll certainly be working with schools to do exactly that. And indeed children's centres, although I have to say the capacity of children's centres is much reduced given the cuts that were imposed by the previous Tory administration, but we will do what we can, Mr Mayor. And also our adult education service also provides financial literacy opportunities for adults, so I'd very much promote that this evening to members of the council to promote to their residents. I think the points that have been made already are extremely accurate. Payday lenders do prey on the poorest and the most desperate people in our society. Sky-high interest rates of 5,000% are just absolutely unjustifiable, and people find themselves caught in a spiral, perhaps after applying for one payday loan just to get them through a short period of time. When their next payday does come round, the interest rates are so high that they then find themselves falling short the next month as well when they're forced to repay these loans. And that's where the vicious spiral begins for many people. So I do absolutely welcome the investigation that's being currently carried out by the Competition Commission, and personally I would very much welcome a cap on interest rates, because it is just absolutely unjustifiable to be charging those amounts of interest. We do have two credit unions that operate locally in Derby, the Derby Credit Union and also the Erewash Credit Union, and I would commend those again to members of the council to promote to their residents in order to help them through difficult financial times. And just to mention also, finally, Mr Mayor, the work of the Child and Family Poverty Commission, which I chair, and will be meeting this week. And on the agenda will be payday lending and doorstep lending, and challenging the marketing and promotion that payday lenders seem to be able to afford on television at all times of day and night. So we really do have a job as a council to help credit unions and alternative forms of finance, help them get their message out, and help them to really access the marketplace in Derby, and to help our residents to give them an alternative to the payday lenders. So I'll be happy to keep council updated, Mr Mayor, with the progress that the Commission makes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. I've got no further indication. Oh, sorry. Councillor Skelton.
Thank you. I think in addition to the points that have been raised already, there are organisations such as FreeCycle, which would also be very useful if we actually publicised those sort of things as well. And also to encourage generally citizens to be generous towards those who are less fortunate than themselves, either through FreeCycle or other ways, such as the food bank that is sitting out in the foyer of this building, and the other food banks that are active across the city, and not just food banks, but for other household items and things that people need. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Schenker, do you wish to say anything before? No.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm glad to hear I think this motion will get cross-party support tonight, but I just hope Councillor Williams had started off with a better approach than "if I must." frankly, yes, you must support this. And I don't think that contribution really helped. I also think it was an endorsement to our campaign to save children's centres. They wouldn't be able to offer this advice if they'd got their way and closed down our children's centres. So I think there was an endorsement for our campaign to save children's centres there as well. I'm sure every member will agree that it's a serious concern to us all that the current financial climate is having a detrimental impact on household incomes across the city. And those who are not so well off are the ones who face the greatest hardship. Here in Derby itself, the situation is already very worrying. And as more and more tax being imposed on residents, dressed up as welfare reforms, bite, the situation is just getting more and more desperate for hard-pressed families. As Councillor Russell has already mentioned, in April 2012, Derby Advice dealt with just over 650 inquiries, whereas in April 13, the figure was well over 1,000. That just goes to show the impact welfare reforms, and in particular this year, the bedroom tax, is having on hard-pressed families. I also hope that everyone will agree that the sudden increase in operating tactics of these so-called payday lenders is nothing to take great comfort from. I'm sure many members will know the payday loan sector has been booming since the economic crisis and the resulting credit crunch. In 2011, Wonga handed out over 2.5 million super high interest loans. The loan sector is one of the very few fast-growing sectors in the UK economy at the moment. And it's obvious, George Osborne's ideologically driven, catastrophically miscalculated, destructive austerity agenda is just not working. Did you also know top Conservative Party funders has been revealed as the man behind one of the biggest lenders in this sector? Henry Angest, I think is his name. I've probably not pronounced it in the way the Tories would pronounce it. A friend of the Camerons, treasurer, I believe, former treasurer of the Conservative Party, gave the Conservatives over £5 million overdraft facility to fund their election campaign. At an interest rate, this is interesting, at an interest rate of 3.5% it's been declared at. Yet the same company that Mr Angest runs, Everyday Loans, charges the public 74.6% for interest. Bit of a contrast there. And another chap, his name Adrian Beecroft, major stake in Wonga, probably the best payday loan company.
Can we just have one meeting, please? I think there's a meeting going on within the meeting here.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I think I might have touched a nerve, but I'll carry on anyway. Yes, Mr Beecroft, a major stake in Wonga, who charges borrowers, again as Councillor Russell has already told us, over 5,000% interest. And this chap's donated, I think, in the region of 800,000 to the Conservatives over the last few years. Jonathan Luff, another senior advisor of Cameron, who's actually left the government to go and work for Wonga. Maybe they're paying him a bit better than Cameron was paying him. So, Mr Mayor, I mean, it's very important that we offer the right advice to Derby residents. Credit unions are a much more ethical and mutual approach to helping vulnerable residents across the city, and we as a council should give every support we can to help credit unions. Also, I think the second part of the motion, we will continue to lobby the government. They have seemed to have abdicated some of their responsibility rather than dealing with this. Just call for another review and let's see what happens next year. Let's kick this into the long grass approach. But we should keep the focus on lobbying the government. But I'm absolutely convinced that lobbying the government will not get us anywhere. The action we need to take is get rid of this government. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Russell, will you sum up?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of points I'd like to pick up on. I think Councillor Williams mentioned financial literacy, and I think that's a really big issue that we have got to tackle, and something which is particularly close to my heart. Actually, the bigger picture of welfare reform is it falls under my portfolio in the council, and it's something that I care very passionately about, and I'm investing a lot of time and effort in to try and make sure given the limited financial constraints that we do have as a local authority, that we do invest people and what money we have into that resource to try and help residents get through this very difficult period. So cross-party support on this motion would be absolutely very much welcomed, and I hope we can move forward in that juncture. Thank you.
I have to take a vote on the motion now. Those in favour of the motion? That's carried, I think, unanimous. Thank you very much. Well, that was the last item on the agenda. Thank you for showing decorum and courtesy to each other. Thank you very much.